Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the Mission Impossible podcast that just won't quit. It won't quit on you. That's what I'm trying to say, Charles. You know what I mean? We have ups and downs. We have different relationships. They come, they go. But you and I, we are here for the listeners of this show. You know what I mean?
Always here. Every week.
In a closet.
Never giving up. Just like Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
We don't quit.
No. And we got a great show today. I know we got some things to talk about beforehand, but I'm very excited about today's episode. And I know you are, too.
Yeah, I just, as you've said before, I'm such a big fan of Lesley Ann Warren. I think she's just an amazing, amazing actress who is in a couple of my favorite movies. So, later in the interview, we talk about that. But of course, we start by talking about Mission Impossible. And I realized something that I forgot to ask her. And afterwards, I was kicking myself so much. She was in the Janie's Got a Gun Aerosmith music video that David Fincher directed. So this is like before Fincher started directing features. He was obviously a very prominent music video director, and he did the Janie's Got a Gun music video, which was always, you remember watching like MTV when we were kids, and it was always like the top 10 best music videos of all time they would do every year or whatever. Or I think it would do like the top 100 or something. And Janie's Got a Gun was always top 10, including a couple of other Fincher videos, some Madonna ones that he did. And she's in it. She plays the mom, I think. And I wish I had asked her about that. I'd love to hear what Fincher was like when he was that age.
Yeah, I'm sure he was still a pain in the ass even back then. I was talking to the director of Pretty in Pink recently, and he said even back then, James Spader was a huge pain in the ass. So I think Fincher would be the same way.
Is that Zoe Deutsch's dad? Isn't it Howard?
Yeah, Howard Deutsch. He's married to Leah Thompson, and yeah.
Yeah, he was like John Hughes' right-hand man, kind of like directing projects for him for a few years.
Yeah, he and Chris Columbus, I think, have directed the same amount. They each directed, I think, 3 for Hughes. But yeah, that's a fascinating. We got to do a John Hughes. Have we done a John Hughes Patreon yet?
No, we have not done a John Hughes Patreon. We really should. I know we both love him so much. I mean, he's one of my heroes. I fucking love John Hughes. Yeah,
let's do it. That's my way of saying you really should be subscribed to the Patreon.
Yeah, there's so many great episodes on there. I mean, we've done so many good ones about the new Blu-ray box set that was for the TV series. We're talking about all kinds of fun things on there every week. It's really, really great. You should definitely sign up for our Patreon at the bonus content level. But also I wanted to say something else for today's interview, just to give a little bit of context, because at one point we started talking about Blake Edwards, also one of my favorite directors, one of my heroes. He directed Victor Victoria, which she was nominated for an Oscar for. Lesley Ann Warren was nominated. And she starts talking about Blake and starts mentioning Julie. I don't know if she ever fully says it, but Julie Andrews, the famous Julie Andrews from Sound of Music and everything. She was married to Blake Edwards, who he has now since passed away, but they were married for decades, and so that's who she's referring to when she's talking about Julie while they were shooting Victor Victoria. So I wanted to give that little bit of context. Also wanted to say another thing about, I'm all jumping all over the place, but we had a Patreon that we did about Sean Connery. We did a big blowout all about Sean Connery after he passed away. And one of our Patreon followers, I think it was Derek, said that we forgot Marnie in our Connery tribute.
We didn't forget Marnie.
I think Marnie's good, but it's not. I think I even commented to Derek back. I said that it's not even, I mean, it's a good movie, but it's not even, I don't even know if it's top 15 Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, he's got so many amazing movies that I don't know where, if I had to rank Hitchcock, I could probably name 20 before I would put Marnie.
Yeah, it's not the most exciting romp in his filmography.
But Connery's good in it. It's cool to see Connery in a Hitchcock movie.
Yes. I love that they kind of overlapped there. But yeah, we did it was a good Connery wrap up. So if you're looking for more, we're talking to an amazing actress of stage and screen today. If you want to do, look at another actor who has been hugely influential, check that out on our Patreon.
Yeah. And do you have anybody you want to thank today, Drew?
Yeah, I really do. Can I just tell you that I'm so excited because I have new copy and it's almost exactly identical to the old copy, but I'm I love reading these ads, Charles, so I'm just very excited about it.
Great.
So I just want to tell everybody that today's show is once again brought to you by My Favorite Album, where filmmaker and music journalist Jeremy Dillon talks to guests like Fred Armisen, Bob Odenkirk, and Casey Musgraves about the music and sometimes the film that they love and how it's influenced them. So we've got that going on, which I know you love. And if you want to listen to those episodes, you can listen to we're just on talking about 007 versus Mission Impossible. And I think those turned out really well. And they have clips from the movies and stuff. And you can listen to that now on our feed or, on My Favorite Album. But I also want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by John B. and Real Estate Interest LLC, which is commercial real estate advice for growing companies. And what they want to impart is that if you're a company who is looking to buy or sell, you can call them up and they'll help you strategize as well. So please give them a ring, and they're really great. And we thank them so much for sponsoring the show.
Yeah, so I guess without further ado, please enjoy our interview with the amazing Lesley Ann Warren. Hello, hey, welcome to the show. It's so great to have Lesley Ann Warren. I'm such a huge fan. We're both huge fans, and we've had this Mission Impossible podcast, and to go through some of the actors that are in season 5, it's pretty amazing. You were in part of that team with, Sam Elliott was in a bunch of episodes as well. Obviously, we want to talk about a lot of things in your career, but we want to start, of course, with Mission Impossible and what that was like, being on the team at such a young age.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was an interesting experience for me because I was brought in specifically when Barbara Bain and Martin Landau left. They wanted to take the show in a different direction. They wanted the replacement for Barbara Bain to be completely different. And, they went younger and they wanted my freckles to show. And it was very, they wanted a whole different kind of characterization. So that felt great to me. And so I sort of jumped in, and I ended up being very close to Leonard Nimoy.
Really?
Yeah, because we both came from sort of a real acting place. What I loved about it was that they gave me a lot of really definitive and varied characterizations for my character. So as an actor, it was challenging every week in that regard.
Had you watched the show up until that point? Obviously, there was like a big sort of creative turnover after season 3. But I mean, had you been a fan before you were cast?
I had watched it intermittently, to be truthful, because I'm usually drawn to material that's much more character-driven and psychological, and that was not the tone of the show. Obviously, it was much more of I don't know what you'd call it. It's not like it was science fiction-y, not really, but
right.
But I mean, it had that sort of, you had to take a leap of faith and go with their sort of theory that this could actually take place in this way. It just wasn't something that I was initially drawn to myself.
Did you come up with a whole backstory for your character, even though that might not have actually ever made it, onto the show? Did you come up where she came from, how she was recruited, all of that stuff? Because at the beginning of season 5, you're just there. There's no sort of explanation about where you came from or how you were hired or, what the vetting process was or any of that. Did you come up with all of that yourself?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
That's something that I do all the time.
Right.
I'm a big actor studio person. I studied with Lee Strasberg. That's my training. And I do big histories for characters, But this was so different for me. First of all, I don't think I'd done a series up until then. That was my first series. And the nature of the character that they sort of gave me was that she changes so radically from show to show. And so I found that it was more important for me as an actress to work with what was happening in that particular show and what her relationship was with the people that she was going to meet or come in contact with, what her relationship was with the team. All of that felt much more, and because it happens so fast, you're getting the script for the next show at the end of this show. And, I had to really sort of adjust to that way of really creating on the spot, which I enjoyed doing. there's no question. I really loved it.
It's interesting. Was that actually a conversation they had about your freckles? Because it's interesting watching season 5. You see these there's really these really great close-ups of you where you really see your freckles more than I think I'd ever seen in your career before in your other movies and things. It was really interesting to see.
Well, I was actually living in Malibu at the time, and with my ex-husband, and so I had a lot of freckles, and they which kind of disappear when you're not in the sun, but they wanted that very, fresh-faced, youthful kind of approach to Dana, and there was a lot of discussion about it, my hair, my makeup, all of that stuff. They really were very invested in the look of her as well.
Barbara Bain told us this amazing story that the executives didn't want her to stand next to Greg Morris in scenes, which is shocking, but also, it seemed very of the time. Did you come across was there anything like that when you were on the show? Because he was still there, season 5.
Did you say what the reason was?
Because they didn't want a white woman standing next to a black man on screen.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that didn't come up for me at all. I mean,
wow.
Nobody ever said a word to me about that at all.
Okay, good.
The way that she had made it sound like that Bruce Geller just took the note but then ignored it and just did whatever they wanted. So at that point, maybe by 1970 it was a little different from 1966. Maybe a lot changed in those 4 years. Maybe
because that was not even nobody mentioned it. It was never a conversation or a rumor or anything. So
wow,
that's
well,
great.
Good. I'm glad that changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
I read somewhere that Dana Lambert actually did have that your character had an intro scene where Phelps comes and recruits her, but it was cut from the show. Is that true? Was there a scene like that? Do you recall?
I don't. But somebody did send me a clip recently, on Instagram of me coming into a room with Phelps, and there was this sort of mild flirtatious undertone, and I don't remember that being in any of the shows. So it's conceivable I don't know, maybe he found that material, but no, I don't remember an actual episode with introducing me to the team or any of that stuff. No.
Wow. Yeah. And there's a new Blu-ray coming out next month, so it might be on there too.
Hopefully there'll be the deleted scene on there. We'll see. There's a musical sequence. You got to sing, right? In an early episode of season 5. Had you done a lot of singing before? Was that scary for you? I mean, what was that like?
No, I started on Broadway. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I started as a ballet dancer, and then I moved into Broadway when I was 17, my first Broadway show. And it was all, I sang and danced in the show, and it was a musical, and did another musical after that, and did Cinderella after that, and did Happiest Millionaire for Disney. So I had a lot of history singing, dancing. So it's always scary. Everything is always scary, just doing something in a new arena, and I was playing, I think, a kind of a folk singer, so if I recall, and that I hadn't done, but no, it was great to do that. I got to use some of what I did.
Rob Marshall, who, the Oscar-winning director of Chicago, his favorite Disney movie is The Happiest Millionaire. So if you ever run into him, bring that up because he loves it.
He and I are friends.
Go good.
He has written me the most exquisite things about
oh, that's great.
That movie and Cinderella, and he actually told me that Cinderella was he and his sister, who's a big Broadway choreographer and director, used to sit every year because it was, in those days, it came on every year at Christmas time, sort of. And it was a big holiday special, and it came on for 10 years in a row. And he said they would sit in the living room and watch that. And he said it made him want to do something in musical theater, just, from watching that. So he's just written me the most exquisite fan letters,
That's great.
That's so awesome.
So you came into the team, and obviously, Peter Graves had been there starting from season 2. Greg Morris and Peter Lupus had been there the whole time. Although I guess Peter Lupus kind of drops out a little bit in season 5. But Leonard Nimoy had been around. You know, what was it like being the new character on the block? And, you know, what was it, what was that experience like?
You know, it was like being a new person in school. I mean, it was, you know, a little unnerving. I mean, Peter Graves was fantastic with me, made me laugh all the time. I don't know if Barbara spoke about that, but he was hysterically funny. And, you know, he has that stoic sort of, you know, very impassive kind of, and he's a really funny guy. So I really sort of bonded with him, but I especially bonded with Leonard Nimoy. Actually, after Mission, he went on to direct me in his first directing job, which was a night gallery. So that was great. But it was hard. It was hard because they all had grown up with Barbara and Marty, and you know, it was Bruce Geller, the producer, was a big fan, so that helped. But it was a bit like coming into a, you know, being the new girl in school and being unsure and not, you know if I'm really welcome and, you know, all of those kinds of feelings.
Was anybody mean?
Mean?
Yeah.
No, nobody was mean.
Okay, good.
I don't remember anybody being mean. Peter Lupus was also very, very sweet.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, you know.
Yeah, and it was my own stuff about coming into a new situation that had been so established.
Right.
And was Bruce Geller, because the way Barbara Bain talked about it, it was like Bruce Geller almost got forced out for season 4. So was he back on for season 5? And how involved was Bruce Geller with the show while you were there?
You know, maybe I have there was a Bruce, maybe I have the names wrong, but I thought it was Bruce Geller, but the actual line, you know, the producer that was on the set all the time, not the executive producer, his name was Bruce. Am I right about that?
Well, I saw, you know, in watching all the season 5 episodes, I was just binge watching them this week, like revisiting stuff. Bruce Lansbury was another producer that was listed on, I think, every episode. I don't know if that's
He was Bruce
possible.
Lansbury. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I know we tell people that we have to eventually have enough money to like sort of put people in a trance before they come on the show to, you know, remember all these details from years ago. So yeah.
Really hard. Maybe it was Bruce Lansbury. I don't remember. But whoever was the acting producer on the show that season was really great with me. And so I felt, somebody had my back, so to speak.
Did you ever get a straight answer from where Sam Elliott got that drawl, considering he was born in Sacramento?
No.
Okay. I've always wondered this because
I didn't even know that. I did not know that sure he was born in Texas or someplace like that. No. He's great. I love him. He's
amazing. Yeah. It's funny watching him in season 5 because honestly, if nobody told me that was Sam Elliott, I would not have thought that was him. And then later in the season, a couple of times his drawl starts to creep in a little bit more. And then you can start to hear that Sam Elliott, that's such a distinctive voice that he has. But he's so young and baby-faced, and it just, I don't know if I would have recognized him if I didn't see him in the credits. Me? Of course.
But you do look like you just came on, you know, that you just finished class at, you know, the community college or something. I mean, you look so young. Walking, especially in that first scene where you're just walking in the background, sort of.
I was so young. I was, 22 or something? I'm 22.
Yeah, so see, there you could have come from a college class, you know. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Was there ever any intent for you to go beyond season 5? Or was this sort of like you gave them a year and you had other things you wanted to do?
I think there was an intent on their part. I did not want to go further with it. I felt, you know, it was just the style of the show and, you know, even though it was beloved beyond, was not what I wanted to do as an actor. So I really thought a lot about it. And what I wanted to do was a different kind of work. And I just thought it's time to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Did Sam sort of feel the same way? Because you guys were sort of in it together, and then you were gone.
I didn't talk to him about it. I
Okay.
didn't talk to anybody about it. I might have talked to Leonard about it later,
Okay.
but I didn't talk to, it was a decision I had to make with, the people that I was working with at the time, and sort of really look at all the, you always worry about, is this going to make a problem down the road? Are people going to, but it didn't. It was okay.
Right.
And who came in after me? I don't remember.
I have the grid up of all the actors actually right now. Hold on, let me see who came
Was it
out.
Linda or?
Yeah, Linda came. Yeah, Linda was the year after you. And
Yeah.
then Barbara Anderson came sort of like, I guess, midway through the next season, and she was on for the rest of it. She was halfway through 6, and so she was in 6 and 7. I'm assuming that other people, not just weirdos like Charles and myself, approach you and write you letters and still talk to you about the show. Does that surprise you?
It does and it doesn't, because that show is such a huge fan favorite. I mean, it's that people just love that show, and that I was a part of it makes them love me in that show, and that's great. I mean, it's so great. It's amazing that it's held on this long and to be so popular still. But it's had all these franchise films that have come out of it, and so I understand. I get it. It's a great sort of fantastic trip to go on in this particular show every week.
Yeah.
Have you watched all the movies? Have you kept up with the franchise?
I've seen a lot of them. I've seen some of them.
Okay. There's a story that they had contacted members of the original TV show to be the team at the beginning of the first movie that's killed off. Did you ever get an indication that they wanted you for that, or hear about that, or anything?
Yeah, no, I hadn't
Okay.
heard of that, but I'm sure they wanted the original team, because that's the team that everybody sort of associates with it, pretty much.
Right.
And you got nominated for a Golden Globe for the show, correct?
I didn't remember that until I realized that. I'm not even kidding. I'm not kidding. I did not remember that. And then I knew I was going to do this, and I was just kind of going through some stuff about it. And yeah, I mean, that was so great. That was so fantastic.
It was so great that you forgot.
I know. That's so sick. But
was there a ceremony back then for that? Like, did you go to a Golden Globe ceremony? Did they have one in person at that point, or no? Or,
probably not, because that I would have remembered. But no, because
Yeah.
I've been, I mean, not to totally boast, but I've been nominated 5 other times, and I've won one, and I remember distinctly all the other times. So there must have not been a ceremony. You must have just gotten the the certificate, or that you've been nominated or whatever. Wow.
You decided to leave. I don't know if that decision came before or after getting nominated for a Golden Globe. I mean, on some level, were your reps, were your, manager, agent, whatever, were they telling you like, you're crazy? Why would you leave a steady job? I mean, was that something that,
Yeah. That's definitely happened to me at different times in my career. When I first started, I was offered a contract with Daryl Zanuck, not Richard Zanuck, his dad.
Yeah.
It was a 4-picture deal, and I was probably 18 or 19 maybe, and it was in New York, and they wanted my first picture to be with Frank Sinatra and to play this go-go dancer, but it was an acting role. And I didn't want to do that. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And my agent, who was Judy Garland's agent at the time, he passed away, but he said, he took my parents to lunch, and he said, you've got to get her to do this. So I've had that different times. When there was a time when I was doing a lot of television movies in the 80s, and I decided I didn't want to do anymore, and I wanted to hold out and just, do films. And my lawyer pretty much was the one that really was like out of his mind about it. And he said, I can get you this, and I can, we can make our own deals, and we can produce, TV movies. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. And 6 months after that, I got Victor Victoria. So my own instincts, if you will, were telling me something significant for my life.
Victor Victoria is one of my all-time favorite movies, like top 20, like Blake Edwards I'm obsessed with. So I'm so excited to have you on the show to talk to you about Blake Edwards and Victor Victoria. You were obviously nominated for an Oscar for Victor Victoria, so deserved. And yeah, what was that experience like doing? I mean, obviously you sang and danced in Victor Victoria. You have that amazing dance number in that movie, and your character is so distinct and hilarious. And what was it like working with Blake Edwards?
Well, it was just a dream. I mean, it was a dream come true. He was, when I met him, he was leaving for London the next day, and my agent said, "You have to go in and meet him today." And I had my hair was in braids. It was the 80s, so I had a jumpsuit on. I didn't have very much makeup on. And I said, I can't. And he said, no, you've got to go in today. You've got to go in right now because he's leaving tomorrow. And I went in and, we had this great talk, and we talked for like 15 minutes, but laughing. And we, talked about Julie and both of us doing Cinderella and how we had this sort of common past from Broadway and her from musical theater in London. And we just had a great time talking. And he said, "Do you want to do this movie?" And I hadn't read a script. I hadn't seen anything. And I said, "I would do anything for you. Okay? I would do anything." I saw Breakfast at Tiffany's. I told him this. I said, I think I've seen Breakfast at Tiffany's 11 times. I've seen Days and Wine and Roses twice. I've seen every Pink Panther movie. Yeah, I'd do anything. And he said, "Okay, go home and read the script." So I went home and I read the script, and in this, there was no musical number in the script. She was a kind of generic chorus girl, and but great, funny. And I had all these ideas on reading it. I thought, oh, it'd be great if she was blonde and she had an accent. And that's when I made up a history. I said, what if she came from the Lower East Side and a family of 14 and she had to yell to be heard? And, she sat in Woolworths, which is probably, you don't even know what that is, but she sat in the Five and Dime and looked at movie magazines and wanted to be a movie star and copied, Jean Harlow and I called the next day. I said, of course, yes, I'll do it. Yes. And I called the next day to speak to Blake, and he was gone. He was in London. And his producer got on the phone and said, "Blake can't come to the phone, but tell me your ideas." And so I told him my ideas. And then they called back and said Blake loves them. And he sent his production designer, or his costume designer, who has become a very big production designer, Patty, I'll think of it before we get off. And his hairdresser, the wig maker, and the makeup artist, and they all came into my bedroom, and we sat there together and sort of concocted this character. Then they flew me to London when it was time to start, and we had to do a big makeup hair test, which they don't even do these days, but like major screen tests, for all the characters. And I thought, he'll either love this or he'll hate it, because it was full blown. I was there, I was Norma. And, luckily for me, he loved it. And then the musical number came about because it was like a 3.5-month shoot. And he made everybody go to dailies. And that means the painters, the crew, the grips, the carpenters, the actors, because he likes to see where the real laughs are from real people. So the dailies were in a big theater in London, and big huge screen, and everybody was there. And one day I was there with him, and he leaned over to me and he said, "Do you still sing?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Do you still dance?" And I said, "I do." And he said, "I want to see more of Norma." And he flew in Henry Mancini and Leslie Brickus to London, and they sat and they watched some of my dailies, and then they wrote this number.
Wow.
Yeah. We rehearsed it for like 3 weeks and shot it.
That's amazing.
But it was just, all I did was ask him questions about Audrey Hepburn. I go, "What is she like? What is she? I was like, obsessed. One scene, the scene on the train where I'm yelling at the conductor, nobody's on the train with me, but I'm yelling, and how can, and you may not remember it, but anyway, that was all improvised. And then when I come out and go, you ain't seen the last of me yet.
And then the guy falls, right?
The guy falls. So I was
Yeah.
supposed to be, it was written in the script that I was going to be topless. And I went to Julie like 2 weeks before and I said, Julie, my son is 14. I can't do this. What do I do? And she said, just keep telling him, just beg him. And so that's what I did for 2 weeks. I was like, please don't make me, please, can't we do something different, And he strung it along because he was trying to torture me. But in the end, he had Patty Norris, designed that sort of under thing that kind of looked like it could have been, and we shot it. And a lot of the stuff was improvised from me. Julie didn't like to improvise, but I was okay with it. And once he found out I was okay with it, we did a lot of improvising.
I wanted to actually ask you specifically about that shot on the train, because it's this incredible oneer where you're walking with the bodyguard. He's escorting you to get on the train, and you're walking and talking, and we hear you and everything you say. And then you get into the train, and then he's walking. The camera goes back with him, and we see you in the background walking, and now you're essentially muted because you're inside the train, and we can no longer hear you, but we can see you. And it's just another example of Blake Edwards' just brilliant comedic staging. Was that always a oneer? Was there any other footage? I mean, was it just that was the scene, the entire scene like that?
The entire scene like that. And he, the only direction he gave me was you be furious at King for sending you away. And, so I just kept up that sort of thing, that was it. Yeah, that was the
And the voice, did that come out of that initial costume and hair session? I mean, what did her voice come out of you right then, or did that something you developed?
No, it was something that I thought about, when I thought about who she was and where she came from. I really did think, what if she came from the Lower East Side? And what if she was raised in a family of 14? So she was always yelling, kind of to be heard. And I ran it by Blake in terms of saying, what if she has this accent from the Lower East Side? But he never heard it until I got to the set of the makeup test, that was really scary, because I thought he'll either, oh my God, I'll either be fired on the spot or he'll, love it. And he loved it. And I worked on it with a very famous dialect coach in Hollywood I think he's passed away. His name is Robert Easton. And I had a couple of sessions with him. I told him what I wanted to do, and he was very specific. And
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you were nominated for an Oscar, what was that whole experience like? I mean, did you go to the ceremony and everything? Was that a big deal for you?
It was a huge deal. Huge deal. Huge. I was shooting another movie, and I was on location in, Florida. And I got a call from a producer friend of mine at 6 a.m, screaming, saying, and saying you've been nominated. But honest to God, and this is like no Hollywood BS, I had no idea I would be nominated. I knew that MGM was taking out a bunch of ads for me. I saw the ads. I knew they were doing that with quotes and stuff, but I never thought I would be. I just didn't. And so the day that it happened, I went into like a blackout. I swear. I was so out of my body. And, I was shooting this movie. And so they gave me the day off because, not 2 hours later, there were crews there from, Entertainment Tonight and all the news crews and all of that. And it was a whirlwind. So that was that day of finding out. And then it was, it's a club that you always think one day, maybe, but you just don't until you're sort of invited in. It's just amazing. It's an amazing honoring. And I took my son and the man that I was with at the time, and I think my son was more disappointed than me that I didn't win, but because he was like 14, probably 15, 14. But in front of me or behind me, I can't remember, was Dustin Hoffman, who didn't win, and Sidney Pollack, who didn't win. And, so you go, okay.
Don't feel too bad.
Yeah.
one of my other absolute favorite movies of all time that I've watched hundreds of times is Clue. And to be on that set with Michael McKean and Madeleine Khan and Christopher Lloyd, I mean, those Tim Curry, I mean, that cast. How did you get work done? How was that?
Well, it was, you're not wrong, because we drove the director, Jonathan Lynn, crazy, because we were laughing hysterically at each other's stuff. I mean, we were laughing doubled over at each other's stuff. And each one of those people, and Martin Mull was also, didn't mention him, but every one of those people was a comedy sort of icon legend in their own way. So what they brought to it, Eileen, Brennan, I mean, what they brought to it was so, Colleen Camp, I mean, all of it, every piece of it was so brilliantly cast and so funny. And so we were like trying to herd cats, we were just like out of control, but it was a great, great experience. And it's been so phenomenal that it has become this enormous cult, sort of beloved hit. And, we all are so grateful.
Well, in the movie, when it came out in theaters, because there's 3 different endings.
Right.
And then when you watch it now on home video, they come one after another. And they have these little title cards but in theaters, I read this before. I mean, I didn't catch on to the movie until I was, in the 90s. I watched it on home video with some friends and became obsessed with it instantly. But when it came out in the 80s and was in theaters, it played with different endings. And so what did that script look like? And how did that, I mean, I don't know if did that work at all for theaters? It seems kind of insane.
Well, what I remember is that they showed different endings at different theaters.
Yeah.
So, so if you went to one theater, you'd see my ending, and then you'd go to another thing, so we shot it, we shot it like we'd shoot anything. We shot all the different endings, probably the same day or same week, whatever. It was a long shoot. It was 3.5 months, but it didn't really confuse the actors so much. It didn't, we sort of went at it the same way, okay, this is what's happening in this, this moment, this Leslie's going to be, Miss Scarlett's going to be, the bad guy, whatever. So, but I don't know how audiences took to that. I don't really know, because it wasn't this giant hit when it came out.
Right.
It became this, this sort of legendary movie, which is so fabulous. And people your age, they come up to me and recite the lines from Clue, like in restaurants, with, servers. It's amazing. I mean, they know it much. They had a tribute to Clue at the Forest Lawn, where they show the movies on
the Hollywood Cemetery. Yeah.
Hollywood Cemetery, exactly. Yeah, thank you. And they did Clue one night, and I was supposed to be introducing the movie and all of that. And people would come up and ask me to say things from, I don't remember. Oh, it's like, I remember, they knew it better than I did, much better than I did. So.
Did it say in the script, like, I mean, how was that written out? Like, this ending, this is one of the endings, and then this is another ending, and this is, I mean, that just seems so crazy.
Well, what they did was they had, each ending was attached to its own script. So you get, when we were going to shoot that ending, we get the script that bled into that, ending, so that it was easier for us to sort of make the transition each time.
And I just want to ask specifically about Madeleine Khan, the late great Madeleine Khan, because I'm just such a huge fan of hers. And what was it like? And she has some of my favorite lines in that movie that I recite often.
Genius. Yeah. I mean, and so unique, so original, such an original way of coming at material. We would just have our jaws hanging open, when she would do whatever she would do, the stuff she would do. And she's a very serious person. Martin Mull and I were laughing constantly, hysterically, and we were also paired in it so much. So we constantly together. Cullen Camp and I had a great time laughing and playing, and as did Tim Curry and Eileen. But Madeleine was a little bit, separate from the rest of the shenanigans that were going on, on set. I mean, when we were supposed to be doing that, but she was quiet and contained. Now I don't know whether that was because that was her character, but right. It could have been. I don't know, but she wasn't like crazy like we were. We were crazy. I mean, just pretty out of control. But she was more contained, which, now that I think about it, though, and I just saw recently, I saw High Anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. And what she does in that movie. And she always has that sort of, there's a sense of otherness for sure. But then she has this kind of contained comedic thing, that's very unique to her, I think,
Yeah.
I just thought she was brilliant.
Was there a lot of improv on the set? I mean, her whole bit about the flames.
Oh my God. Yes. No, I think it's just how each actor interpreted their character, but not improvising the script, so to speak. It was, I don't know how Tim Curry did what he did. It was just incredible because he had the most dialogue and it's such a fast pace. The director had us, before we started shooting, he had us all come to Paramount and sit together, and he screened My Girl Friday, the one with
his Girl Friday.
His Girl Friday.
Yeah.
Because he wanted us to all have that tempo, that clipped kind of 1940s tempo, and he wanted us to really be in the room together, hearing it together, so that we could, bring it to the set, and we did. But Tim had the most, challenging of all, because he had so much and so much to remember. I mean, so much, yeah. I mean, Martin and I improvised stuff like trying to get through that door that we.
Oh yeah.
Those kind of, there was that kind of behavioral improvisation, but not so much with the lines.
Right.
You've done so much TV, but I just wanted to ask you about one thing specifically, which I hope you remember because it sounds like it was a memorable experience. But you were on the Muppet Show in 1979, in the height of the kind of explosion of this. What was that like? What was it like working with Jim and Frank and all those amazing people? Was it something that you still treasure?
I do treasure it. I absolutely do treasure it. They brought me over to London, and we rehearsed again because I danced and sang, so I had a bunch of rehearsal to do. And it's just my favorite movie. One of my favorite movies growing up was a movie called Lily, and that was with Lesley Ann, and it was she falls in love with the puppet, but of course the puppet master is falling in love with her, but she falls in love with this puppet that she talks to, and that she And it was the genesis for a Broadway musical called Carnival. But I loved that movie. I loved her, and I saw it so many times. So that when I got to sing and dance the puppets, I felt like I was embodying what I had loved in that movie, and it was very, very easy for me to relate to these puppets as real beings.
Right.
So I loved it.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Did you get to interact at all with Frank Oz and Jim Henson much, or was it more just like directly with the Muppets?
Directly with the Muppets for the most part, but they were there. They were there, and they were on set, and they would talk to you, and But their work primarily was with the Muppets. They were more concerned about that part of it, and then the choreographer was more concerned with me. So
right.
It was, but they were there. It was a thrill.
That's amazing. I mean, more recently, I just wanted to briefly touch on, you got to work with Steven Soderbergh on the Limey, which is such an amazing, accomplishment, and I think has kind of had a second wind, especially with its 20th anniversary last year. But what was that like working with him? I mean, he's kind of encyclopedic in his knowledge. Did he sort of bring up a bunch of things that you had done in the past, and what was that like?
No, he was very, when I met him, and I was there in New York for the 20th anniversary at Lincoln Center. It was so great. When I met him, we met in this hotel and we had tea together. And I came sort of as the character, I was subdued in my dressing and kind of, had an air of this character because I'd already read the script, obviously. And we had a lovely talk, and, I got the movie and we started shooting, and he's very intellectual. He's very intelligent, very, erudite. But he didn't talk much. He didn't talk much to the actors. Certainly didn't talk much to me. And at one point I went up to him and I said, I guess it was a weekend, and I said, "Are you happy with what I'm doing? I can't tell." And he said that he had the same experience with Catherine Keener on, I guess, was it Out of Sight?
I think it was Full Frontal. No, that was later.
Oh, no, she's in Out of Sight.
She is in Out of Sight. That's right.
It was Out of Sight, right?
She was the showgirl that Luis Guzman goes to when he gets out. Do you remember that? She was like one of Clooney's crew. Yeah.
But I think she was in the movie.
Yeah.
So he said, this is exactly what happened with Catherine Keener. He said we were on the movie for a week or two or whatever it was, and she was very, very just upset and in a kind of a corner and just really clearly upset. And he said, what's the matter? And she said, "I know you're going to fire me. I know you don't like what I'm doing. You haven't said one word to me. And I know you." And his response was, and he said, and I'm telling me the same thing. He said, "When I cast so carefully. And I know that actor is going to deliver exactly what I want. And I don't have to get in there and mess with them." And so that was a huge compliment, but it was unnerving for like a while. Well, cut to somewhere in the second week. Once I heard that, I was like relaxed. And then the second week, he saw me laughing with somebody, I don't know. And he came over and he said, "You're not really this depressed character, are you?" And I said, "Nope." He said, "You were what?" And I said, "Trying to get a job." So once he found out that I love to laugh, it's my favorite. Actually, Blake Edwards said to me on the set that one of the reasons he cast me one reason was he saw me do something called a television movie called Portrait of a Showgirl or Portrait of a Stripper. And he saw me do that kind of dancing. But he said, it was the way you laughed in the meeting. He said, "I knew by the way you laughed in the meeting that you would be uninhibited and jump into this character," which I thought was pretty amazing. And, on his part. So when Stephen found out that I loved to laugh, that was it. He ribbed me for the entire movie, constantly, making me laugh. And he was a very different kind of person from that moment on, But it was great. It was great. I was intimidated, I would say, initially by him and by my co-star. Oh my God, come on.
Terrence Stamp.
Yeah. And he was so formidable and, and it took a bit to get over that, but eventually, yes.
Well, he stacked that cast with all these sort of amazing icons of the 1960s and then sort of twisted them in such an interesting way. And did you feel like you were sort of part of that? Did you feel like, oh, wow, I must be like sort of this kind of seminal figure from that period because he cast you alongside all of these sort of great contemporaries?
Terrence and Peter were not actually my contemporaries. They were older.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that was something he was doing over there with them.
Okay.
It didn't feel like, but in my apartment on the set, he had the art department make a television movie kind of one sheet. And I thought, he picked up from that, the 80s when I did all those television movies. So, yeah.
That's awesome. We think you're an icon from being on Mission Impossible, right at the tail end of the 60s. But, yes, that's amazing. Did you take that poster home?
No, I didn't. I didn't. But I took the jacket I wore, so.
Oh, cool.
My closet.
You also worked with another comedy legend, Mel Brooks, on Life Stinks. What was it like working with Mel Brooks, who's still amazing? I'm so happy he's still with us. Mel Brooks is a legend. What was it like working with him?
He just lost his best friend, sadly. But
I know.
Yes.
No. Well, I just love him. I love him, love him, love him. He knows I love him. I just love him. He, he was so, well, again, my meeting, I did audition for him and a bunch of the writers and the producer. And when I came out of the audition, I was looking for the ladies' room, and he came out after, and he said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "Well, I was actually looking for the ladies' room." And he said, "Oh, it's down here, whatever." All right, cut to, I'd never done a role like that. It was very, very different for me. Somewhere like a week into the shoot or something, I said to him, "Why did you cast me in this?" And he said it was the way you asked where the ladies' room was. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Your reading was good." He said, "But you were acting like you were all together." But he said, "I saw this very vulnerable little girl inside, and that's what I wanted for the character." Isn't that crazy? Like, it's so smart. He's another incredibly intelligent man. Beyond well-read, terribly cultured, knows everything about art and music, and isn't like his movies, so to speak, but very protective. I was very scared. I did things in the movie that I'd never done before, and I was really scared. And he was very loving and very protective, and that dance number was another thing that was added into the movie after we'd been shooting for a while. And I remember Anne Bancroft, his wife, came to the set when we were shooting that dance number. And she had tears going down her face because she loved him so much, and she was so proud of him. And he loved singing and dancing. He loved doing like his version of Sinatra. It was just an absolute gift to do that movie with him.
That's amazing.
I know we are running out of time, but I obviously want to end on a very classy note, which is, do you have any funny stories from the Color of Night set, which has become something of a cult movie, in the years since?
It's become what?
Something of a cult classic in the years since.
Is that true?
Yeah, they just put out a Blu-ray with Richard Rush's director's cut, which is actually much more sort of complete. But, I mean, it's obviously a very sort of funny movie. You see Bruce Willis's penis, obviously, which is huge. I mean, the moment, not the penis. So I was wondering if there...
This is a very classy way to end.
I know. I thought so. But I mean, do you have any funny stories from that set?
I love it. You're fine with me. So yes, The Color of Night. That was Richard Rush and I had actually wanted to work together a lot, so it was great, and that I ended up doing it. It was scary. It was scary because I had never done any kind of. Well, first of all, I'd never done any nudity, and I did actually have to be nude in this, but I had to be in a scene with Jane where she was topless.
Right.
And she was scared. She was scared all the time. It was not an easy shoot for her. She was very young, so young. And even though she had done that before in another movie, it was very scary. And one of the funny stories about that movie was that scene where she and I are supposedly about to make love, I guess. And we were shooting in someone's, a house. They got location house. And we were upstairs, and it was night, and we had to be out of the area at 10 p.m. And, this was a big shoot. So there were trucks and, all the equipment that goes along with a big shoot. And so we were upstairs shooting, and with a skeleton crew, because again, there was nudity for Jane, and it was difficult, just difficult. She'd never kissed a woman, and nor had I. And so we were both, and they let the rest of the crew go, and they were wrapping up all the trucks and all of that. And all of a sudden we hear, and Richard's with us, on that little cramped bathroom that we were in. And we hear this pounding coming up. Sorry, I just shook the thing. We hear this pounding coming up the stairs, and it's the police. And Richard's going, keep shooting, keep shooting, keep shooting. It's like one of those things in the movie. And we didn't know, you listen to your director, and she's half naked, and we're doing this ridiculous kind of love scene in the bathroom, and the police are coming up the stairs. It was crazy. Crazy. And the police shut us down. I mean, they were like, stop, but he got what he needed, Richard. So, God knows where he would have gone if he had kept the camera rolling. But that was a hard shoot for a lot of reasons, because it was really difficult material for Jane. She was so young, and it was difficult for all of us. It was a challenging movie to make.
Yeah, I always wish Richard would make more movies, but so we have to treasure, the stunt man and this, and but it's such a fun conceit, and I think people get a kick out of it. And it's the fact that it was made by Disney is truly maybe the most fucked up part of the whole movie, and sort of a little a lovely little addition there. But we've kept you too long, and I've made you talk about Color of Night. So we thank you so much for being on here. What were you gonna say?
Well,
Charles?
should we ask if you said you've seen some of the Mission Impossible movies? Do you have a favorite?
Don't ask me that. I'm like a French film. That's my jam.
Yeah.
I
De
love
Palma's
Tom
movies
Cruise,
are,
I do love Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Tom
Oh, that's
Who
good.
doesn't love Tom Cruise, right? Yeah.
I think he's fun. Yeah, that's about as far as I can go with that. So.
Well, thank you so much. This has meant the world to us, seriously. And just thank you so much. And
Thank you.
We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
We're back. Lesley Ann Warren in the bag. This is when the flirting starts. But it's not.
I was not flirting with her. It was a love fest of me. I'm just such a fan of hers.
You are. I think everyone that listens to this is going to hear that in a big way.
There were so many great things that came out of this too that I have to talk about. So
Go
for
ahead.
one, I love her talking about Peter Graves having a sense of humor, which obviously makes sense. If you haven't seen Airplane, you should absolutely see Airplane. But I love the idea that he was already kind of that kind of way on set, the way he is in Airplane, which is such an incredible movie and such a hilarious performance. That was the first time I think anybody used Peter Graves for comedy, from what I know of, right?
Yeah. Was Robert Stack in that too?
Yeah, and so those Zaz guys, I mean, they their whole thing of, playing it straight and bringing these actors who putting them in these situations and realizing how funny they could be, like Peter Graves and Lloyd Bridges and Robert Stack. It was just fucking brilliant.
It's so great.
The other thing that I had no idea about that you brought up in this interview is that Sam Elliott is from Sacramento.
Yes. Sam Elliott, everyone's favorite cowboy, is from Sacramento. I don't know where that accent came from. I don't know what happened, but
you kind of see it develop through season 5 of Mission Impossible. Like maybe he discovered it while he was shooting Mission. I mean, we're trying. We would love to get Sam Elliott on the show, and so we're trying, and it would be amazing to talk to him, and maybe we could ask him. Maybe did he find his Southern accent in while making?
Yeah,
Mission?
did he go undercover as a Texan, and that was like the beginning of it? Who knows?
If nobody told me that was him, I would not have recognized him at the beginning. Like slowly as the season goes on, you start to hear his voice a little bit more, and you're like, oh, that is Sam Elliott. Yeah, but you just, I mean, if I didn't see the credits and didn't see his name, I would not have thought it was him.
Yeah, he is a legend, but he is also a weirdo because he's talking like he's from Texas and he's from Sacramento. But we love him. He is great.
He's amazing. He's a cowboy in everything. He's in Tombstone. He was in The Big Lebowski. He's the cowboy in Big Lebowski.
Yep. He's in the best scene in Good Dinosaur. He was the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Did you ever watch The Good Dinosaur, Charles?
I saw it once in theaters. I don't really remember it that well, so I don't remember that part. But
you'll revisit it, I'm sure, with your children one day. But
yes.
Yeah.
Another thing that came out of it was talking about Bruce Geller and trying to find. I looked up some information on this to find clarity on which Bruce that she was referring to, because was it Bruce Geller or was it Bruce Lansbury, who was, producing and running the show at this point? I found a couple different scoops about this, and I have the Mission Impossible dossier book about the old TV show, and then I also looked up some things on. There's a website called the Internet Movie Firearms Database, which is some variation of IMDb. I don't even know if it's not associated with IMDb, I don't think, but it's about the different firearms that are in different movies. And they had this information about season 5, and it was echoed in the Mission Impossible dossier book, which was that season 5 was the last season for creator, executive producer Bruce Geller, who was barred from the Paramount lot partway through the season. He retained his executive producer credit till the end of the show, but was no longer part of it. So actually, in the middle of Lesley Ann Warren's season, Bruce Geller was essentially kicked off the show and blocked from even coming on the lot and using his. I think he had a parking space that he wasn't even allowed to use anymore.
Wow.
Which is pretty fascinating. And then Bruce Lansbury, the other Bruce, I found out he was a very prominent TV writer, producer. He was a big part of the original Wild Wild West TV show, the Wonder Woman TV show, Knight Rider, and Murder, She Wrote, because it turns out he was Angela Lansbury's brother.
Wow. You were just laying the facts down.
I'm getting all kinds of scoops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just,
Well, we should bring up the fact that you can see Lesley Ann Warren now in beautiful HD, thanks to the new Blu-ray box set. That's out right now that you can go pick up for around $100 from Amazon or Best Buy. Charles, you and I got sent a copy from Paramount.
Yep. And we have a Patreon episode about it. So you can, if you sign up for our Patreon at the bonus content level, patreon.com/lightthefuse, you can hear our episode where we break down and talk about this box set, which is an amazing package. It's really cool packaging, the whole thing. So we'll talk about it all. And so you should sign up for our Patreon. You should also get a shirt or a mug or a pin or sticker or magnet from our TeePublic page, which is linked from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com, in the merch section. You can also check out the episode guide on our website, because we've got great show notes for our whole back catalog. It's really a great resource that you should check out. I also want to tease next week's episode, because we're talking to David Dozeretz next week. He was a previs pioneer who did the pre-visualization for the helicopter finale in the first Mission Impossible. He's got some really cool stuff. And next week there is a huge bombshell about Ghost Protocol that he tells us. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Drew? His reveal of something?
It's the only thing I've been thinking about since that episode. So yes, of course.
So you got to come back next week, because he's going to blow your mind with something that was originally planned for Ghost Protocol. It's totally insane. What else, Drew?
I think you have some people to thank, actually.
I do. You're right. I have to give a special thank you to Dustin Catalan. And I also want to credit our intern, Abby Smith, and our editor and mixer, Luke Burson. And our music was done lovingly by Kevin Blumenfeld, some of which is original, some of which is completely not.
We'll see if Kevin's locked up by next week, but we will be back.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.